Shabbat Shalom. We are in 2 Kings 24, roughly page 411 in the scriptures. If you've not been following along, this is not going to make any sense to you at all. But I would encourage you to be following along. Better yet, read it with your own eyeballs in your own Bible. Chapter 24. In his days, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babel, came up, and Jehoiakim became his servant for 3 years, and he turned and rebelled against him. And Yahweh sent against him raiding bands of Kasdim, and raiding bands of Aram, and raiding bands of Moab, and raiding bands of the children of Ammon. And he sent them against Judah to destroy it, according to the word of Yahweh, which he had spoken by his servants the prophets. Only at the mouth of Yahweh this came upon Judah, to remove them from his presence because of the sins of Manasseh, according to all that he did. And also because of the innocent blood that Manasseh shed. For he filled Jerusalem with innocent blood, which Yahweh would not forgive. You know, and as a brief aside here, the Father's going to judge the United States of America. It is filled with blood. And I don't like that. That goes against every grain of my American fibers. But we've murdered more babies than we can count. We go around the world and we bring death and destruction, oftentimes masquerading as freedom, so that the military-industrial complex can continue to do what it does. And yet we beg the Father for his provision and blessing. Only at the mouth of Yahweh this came upon Judah, to remove them from his presence because of the sins of Manasseh, according to all that he did, and also because of the innocent blood that he shed. For he filled Jerusalem with innocent blood, which Yahweh would not forgive. And the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Judah? And so Jehoiakim slept with his fathers, and Jehoiakim his son reigned in his place. And the king of Mitzrayim of Egypt did not come out of his land again, for the king of Babel had taken all that belonged to the kings of Mitzrayim, from the wadi of Mitzrayim to the river Euphrates. And so Babylon's on the move. Jehoiakim was 18 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 new moons. And his mother's name was Nehushta, the daughter of Elnathan of Jerusalem. And he did evil in the eyes of Yahweh, according to all that his father did. At that time, servants of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babel, came up against Jerusalem, and the city was besieged. And Nebuchadnezzar, as it's written in this translation, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babel, came up against the city as his servants were besieging it. And Jehoiakim, king of Judah, and his mother, and his servants, and his heads, and his eunuchs went out to the king of Babel, Nebuchadnezzar. And the king of Babel, in the 8th year of his reign, took him prisoner, Jehoiakim. And he took from there all the treasures of the house of Yahweh, and the treasures of the king's house. And he cut into pieces all the objects of gold which Solomon, king of Israel, had made in the house of Yahweh, as Yahweh had said. And he exiled all Jerusalem, and all the officers, and all the mighty brave men, 10,000 exiles, and all the craftsmen and the smiths. None remained except the poorest people of the land. And he exiled Jehoiakim to Babel, and the king's mother, and the king's wives, and his eunuchs, and the leading men of the land he exiled from Jerusalem to Babel. And all the mighty brave men, 7,000, and the craftsmen and smiths, 1,000, all who were strong and fit for battle. These the king of Babel brought to Babel in exile. And the king of Babel set up Mattaniah, Jehoiakim's uncle, to reign in his place, and changed his name to Siddiq, which Zadik means righteous man. Yahu is like of Yah. And so it's pretty much a slap in the face here. This righteous man of Yah was set up by the pagan king of Babel. And Siddiq was 21 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Yirmiyahu of Libnah. And he did evil in the eyes of Yahweh, according to all that Jehoiakim did. For this took place in Jerusalem and Judah because of the displeasure of Yahweh, until he had cast them out from his presence. And Siddiq rebelled against the king of Babel. And it came to be in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th new moon, on the 10th of the new moon, that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babel, and all his army came against Jerusalem, and encamped against it. And they built a siege wall around it all. And the city was besieged until the 11th year of King Siddiq. By the 9th of the new moon, the scarcity of food had become so severe in the city that there was no food for the people of the land. Then the city wall was breached, and all the men of battle fled at night by way of the gate between two walls, which was the king's garden, even though the Kasdim were still encamped all around the city. And the king went by the way of the desert plain. And so the soldiers and the king are running away. That's usually a pretty bad sign. And the army of the Kasdim pursued the king and overtook him in the desert plains of Jericho, and all his army was scattered from him. And they seized the king and brought him up to the king of Babel at Riblah, and they pronounced sentence on him. And they slew the sons of Siddiq before his eyes. They killed his sons. And they put out the eyes of Siddiq and bound him with bronze shackles and took him to Babel. And in the 5th new moon, on the 7th of the new moon, which was the 19th year of the king Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babel, Nebuzaradan, the chief of the guard, a servant of the king of Babel, came to Jerusalem. I don't think we should just skip over how brutal this is. They killed all of his sons in front of him. Then they put his eyes out, probably with a hot poker, and bound him with bronze shackles and took him to Babel as a show, as a mockery. And this Nebuzaradan, and he burned the house of Yahweh, the temple, and the house of the king, and all the houses of Jerusalem. Even every great house he burned with fire. And all the army of the Kasdim who were with the chief of the guard broke down the walls of Jerusalem all around. And Nebuzaradan, the chief of the guard, took into exile the rest of the peoples who were left in the city, and the deserters who deserted to the king of Babel, with the rest of the multitude. And so we have here everything comes full circle, right? Right now, Israel, the Father's chosen people, because they are not doing what the Father told them to do. The Father has forsaken them. They earned it. He told them to act right, and they didn't. And now Babel is destroying Israel and Jerusalem and the temple. You fast forward to Revelation, what happens? The King of Israel, Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ, returns. And he destroys Babel. And he reigns over a new heaven and a new earth and a new Jerusalem. And there's a new temple where he is the high priest. So we have the inverse of that here. And all that good that is done in Revelation, this is the opposite of that. This is bad. But the chief of the guard left some of the poor of the land as vine dressers and as farmers. John 15:5, the vine and the branches. And the bronze columns that were in the house of Yahweh, and the stands of the bronze sea that were in the house of Yahweh, the Kasdim broke into pieces and took their bronze away to Babel. They took the pots and the shovels and the snuffers and the ladles and all the bronze utensils the priests used in the service. And the chief of the guard took the fire holders and the basins which were of solid gold and silver. And the bronze of all these utensils was beyond measure, the 2 columns, the 1 sea, and the stand, which Solomon had made for the house of Yahweh. And the height of 1 column was 18 cubits, and the capital on it was of bronze, and the height of the capital was 3 cubits, 4.5 foot. And the network of pomegranates around the capital were all of bronze, and the 2nd column was the same with the network. And the chief of the guard took Sariah, the chief priest, and Sephanyahu, the 2nd priest, and the 3 doorkeepers. And out of the city he took a certain eunuch who was appointed over the men of battle, and 5 men of those who saw the king's face, who were found in the city, and the chief scribe of the army, who mustered the people of the land, and 60 men of the people of the land who were found in the city. And Nebuzaradan, chief of the guard, took them and made them go to the king of Babel at Rivlah. So these were, men who saw the king's face, trusted advisors and or friends, and the chief priest, and the leader of the guard, and 60 men who were left. Kind of like the holdouts, the partisans, the French resistance. And so Nebuzaradan from Babylon, who's working on behalf of Nebuchadnezzar, scoops these guys up and takes them to the king Nebuchadnezzar at Riblah. And the king of Babel struck them and put them to death at Riblah in the land of Hamath. And so he exiled Judah from its own land. And he appointed Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, over the people who were left in the land of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babel, had left. And so he set up a figurehead in the area, and Nebuchadnezzar brought his own people into Judah to occupy the land. And so he put his governor over his people. And all the commanders of the armies and their men heard that the king of Babel had appointed Gedaliah, and they came to Gedaliah at Mitzpah, even Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, and Yochanan, son of Kareah, and Sariah, son of Tanhumeth, and Netophathite, and Yaazanyahu, the son of Kalatite, they and their men. And Gedaliah swore to them and their men, saying, Do not be afraid of the servants of the Kasdim. Hey, don't be afraid of us. Dwell in the land and serve the king of Babel, and let it be good with you. And in the 7th new moon it came to be that Ishmael, the son of Nethaniah, of Elishama, of the seed of the rain, so he's of the royal family, came with 10 men and struck Gedaliah, the governor that the king of Babel put in place, that he died, and the Yehudim and the Kasdim who were with him at Mitzvah. And all the people rose up, small and great, and the commanders of the armies, and went to Mitzrayim, for they were afraid of the Kasdim. They were afraid of the Babylonians and the blowback that now that they killed the governor, they're going to bug out to Egypt, Mitzrayim. And it came to be in the 37th year of exile of Yehoiakim, king of Judah, in the 12th new moon, on the 27th of the new moon, that Ewil Merodach, king of Babel, in the year that he began to reign, released Jehoiakim, king of Judah, from prison, and spoke kindly to him, and set his throne above the throne of the kings who were with him in Babel. And he changed his prison garments, and he ate bread continually before the king all the days of his life. And as his allowance, a continual allowance was given to him from the king, a quota for each day, all the days of his life. And that is the end of 2 Kings. Next week, Yah willing, we will start Isaiah. It's about to get real. Bless y'all. Shalom.